So, welcome back, everyone, to In 10 Years Time podcast. Me, you, and Blakeway, and today we're talking to recent PFL signing, a recent winner in the PFL, actually, Shanelle Dyer.
Get down in the car, one time give it all, bust it open hard, let me see you job. Get down in the car, one time give it all, bust it open hard, let me see you job. I fucked up this hustle, baby hustle, then
Shanelle, thanks for coming on. It's quite what I'm excited for, actually, because there's a lot of hype around you at the moment, particularly in the MMA community. So yeah, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
No, that's good. So yeah, to start off with, then, when I do this, I always start off with like people and like their personal lives and what they started off with and stuff. So you born in like Shepherd's Bush, or you grew up in Shepherd's Bush.
Yeah.
What was it like growing up in that part of London for people that don't already know much about that area?
So I was born in London, born and raised West London. I'm from Shepherd's Bush, as you just said. I live right next to an estate called White City, and I just had the typical London childhood. Like, grew up most of my time in this estate, with my friends, bike riding, playing football, hanging out. Not doing anything like bad, but just like literally just being a child, being like one of those little rascals. And I enjoyed every second of it. London, as you know, London's notorious with knife crime, so you can see that a lot going on in their states, like their state that I grew up as well. So from a young age, I could see that literally like on my doorstep, from a young age. But I was never really into that. I was just into my sports, and my friends, and schoolwork and stuff like that. But being surrounded by those type of things, I think that's why my dad and my parents wanted me and my siblings, to keep distracted. So they just put us into like every single sport. So I done like football, swimming. I even did ballet for a stage. I actually got like certificates and everything in like ballet. They just like tried to keep us preoccupied. So like after school, we was always busy doing sports and stuff like that. So the people that we look up to, the role models that we looked up to, are not the role models in the state, it's the role models in the gym, people making millions of pounds, people making thousands of pounds. So those are the people I was surrounded with growing up. More like, I spent most of my childhood, especially I started martial arts when I was 9 years old, most of my childhood in the gym or up and down the country fighting, and that was my passion from a young age. But I'll never change growing up from London. Like, I loved every second of it. And I keep that within my heart, and yeah, forever and always.
And you talked about just mentioned how your dad got you into like loads of different stuff. How was school then for you as well?
Yeah, so me, I love school. Like when I was younger, I was like that, especially like primary school. I was like that, like know the girl. I used to like stay up at night reading books. I really like loved English. I got really good grades in school, actually. So fighting wasn't actually like a number one for me. Like, I had good grades, so I could have went down the academic route, like religiously. My mum, she wanted me to go kind of down the academic route, because I actually got good grades. So why not go university, get my qualification and stuff like that. High school, I was just being like that typical high schooler. I actually took a break off of martial arts when I went high school. I was about 13, 14, 15 at those times, and just did what a typical teenager did, messed about a little bit in school. But I think that's where the martial arts discipline came in. I didn't really do martial arts at the time. Still got good grades as well, because my mom always like put in my head from a young age that you have to get your qualifications no matter what you want to do in the future. Just knuckle down now and get your qualification, because this is the time to get it. So I still got my qualifications, got good grades, went to college as well, and finished my educational studies when I was 18 after college.
That's always like a thing, I guess. If as like someone you doing good in academics and stuff, that's always like a thing. Your parents like oh no, come on, you got to go to
Yeah,
university
yeah,
and you got to go down that route. But then it's like you got to try and explain it to them, I guess. That no, you want to
yeah.
do
They're
something
like, why are you
completely
gonna
different.
give why are you gonna give up like education? Like you get good grades and you're actually really smart to go
Mm.
down and punch someone for a living. I was just like, because
Yeah,
I'm smart, I wanna punch someone for a living. I don't wanna.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I guess a lot of people go through that as well when they're growing up. You talked about you're good in English and stuff. Was
Yeah.
there anything other? Was at any point did you think uh was it always MMA for you or martial arts, or was there like any other career opportunities you were thinking about doing before you went full throttle with the MMA?
Not really. Like as I said, from a young age, like, I've done like martial arts as sorry as a distraction, but as more like because I enjoyed it as well. Like I loved it. I loved the people I met. I loved traveling, and so I just done it as a hobby. Like that's something I really done on the side as a hobby, and it was my passion at the time. But I never actually thought of it as a job until like 4 years ago. I think is when I actually thought, okay, this could actually sorry, like this could actually be
Sorry.
a career for me. Um, yeah, it was just literally a hobby. I did a bit of football when I was younger. When I was about 13, 14 years old. I had to kind of decide between martial arts and like football because I was actually really good at football. I was actually quite good at football at the time. So I had to choose between football and martial arts. And I'm glad I chose martial arts because martial arts I really enjoyed it and look where I am now. Otherwise, if I chose football, I would have been in a different situation.
Ballet never came across your mind then.
Yeah.
Do you think you mentioned like the knife crime and stuff like in that part of London? And do you think, because I've spoken to Sadia Kabir, she's like a rugby player for England, and she grew up in like Croydon area, like South, and she was saying how like she thinks being brought up in that area gives people a little bit of the edge because obviously it's not great their circumstances, so that makes them work even more harder than the usual person. I know you're not from Croydon, but do you think being in similar circumstances that's given you an edge, like, and it's affected how hard you work and stuff like that?
100%. Like as I said, when I was growing up, I could see those stuff in like my doorstep. So I don't want to be those type of people growing up. I wanted to be the people I've been, the role models I've been surrounded by. I wanted to be a world champion. So I want to be a world champion so I can inspire the younger generation.
Mm. And so you said that your dad so it was your dad that pushed you into, was it Muay Thai? That was your first martial art, was it?
Yeah, so I done Muay Thai when I was 9 years old. He really pushed me um to start that as well. So he's been like to basically all my fights when I was younger. I mean, still around now. So
Mm.
um, when he was younger, he didn't really get the opportunities um to be great. But so he wants his children to be great.
And I think I read this somewhere, and I'm all right. You won 27 world titles, either in, is that Muay Thai and kickboxing, or just
Yeah,
Muay
so I
Thai?
won. I won. I think it's like 30 Muay Thai and K1 titles.
That's just crazy. Wow, fair play.
Um, I think I'll have like 5 or 6 world titles as well in
That's,
Muay Thai and K1.
that's crazy. I couldn't believe that when I saw that. I thought, wow,
Yeah.
that's mental. Um, so is your dad into like fighting and stuff as well then?
No, so my dad was actually a footballer, funny enough. That was his passion when he was younger. And that's where he got me into football as well. As I said
Mm,
before, it was like
mm.
between football and MMA. So he was like really passionate in his football career. And when I was younger, when he was younger, he didn't really get the opportunity to pursue being a footballer. His parents were like really traditional. So they wanted him to go through the academic route. So he had to really do that and he had to have like a normal job. But when he had kids, he like said to himself he didn't want them to be restricted. They wanted them to follow their dreams, and that's what he done with me. He supported me all throughout.
Mm. And obviously, with Muay Thai being your base, was you had to make the transition into mixed martial arts. What what was the moment that you thought, right, I'm going to go into MMA? Did a coach did a coach come up to you, or did you just see? Obviously, it's pretty well known. There's more money, especially now in MMA, than like Muay Thai, and there's more recognition and stuff. So was that why you went into it, or maybe you just enjoyed it more?
I started MMA when I was about 18 years old. I think I was
Mm.
in college. It was like my last year of college. And then we was going through like university clearing. Like I had to meet with my tutor, and he was like, "Okay, where do we go from this? Like, what do you want to do in the future?" And as I said before, I thought it was like martial arts as a hobby, and never actually deeped it. That could actually be my career. So I was like, okay, Muay Thai, you can't really make a lot of money off of Muay Thai, but what can I do to make money? And to make money, you can do MMA. So I chose MMA as a career for going forward because all I want to do in life is fight, and to do that is to do MMA. So MMA or boxing, but I like kicking too much to be a boxer. So obviously I chose MMA.
Also, I know you just mentioned boxing, and I know this. I should be talking about you, but I'm still in disbelief about what happened on Saturday night.
I know, literally. Like I'm not a boxing fan, but that was probably the first fight I've actually watched like 10 rounds of it. And I sat down with like I had hope of like Ngannou, but like after he knocked him down in the third round, I was just like, he won the fight. Like even if Ngannou gets stopped or he loses the
Honestly,
decision, the second he knocked Tyson Fury down, he won the fight 100%.
honestly, I
I'm
don't
like,
give. I honestly don't give a shit about the scorecards, to be honest. Like I'm
literally.
just like, what the heck? I was literally scream. I was like, oh my, But
Yeah,
anyway,
literally. Like
back to
after
it.
he
I
knocked
had
him down, I just like he won the fight 100%. He's a legend for that. Like where he
to.
came from, where he is now, he's just it's unbelievable. Like
I know. Yeah, I still can't believe that. It's bloody nearly 72 hours
yeah,
since it. But anyway, obviously, your nickname is the Nightmare, and when I was researching you, there's this really. I actually urge everyone to go and see this Sky Sports documentary called The
yeah,
Good Fight Club. I'm surprised at like how little views it had and stuff because I thought it was amazing. That's
yeah,
generally like one of the best like not just MMA but just like combat like documentary, just the way it was filmed and everything. I was
yeah,
really I couldn't believe it. But I know this is really difficult for you to talk about, as it would be for anyone.
yeah,
But obviously what happened to your friend and former MMA fighter, Jaro Shepherd. Now when I talked to a boxer called Owen Cooper earlier in the year, and he was like saying how he had a friend very similar, and he died in like a car crash. And he was saying like how that's like his main motivator. Obviously, he motivates himself because
yeah,
he wants to do amazing in boxing, but that's like a really big motivator for him in the sport. And I'm guessing because obviously your nickname is the
yeah.
Nightmare, and that's carrying on from Jaro, rest in peace. So, is that the same thing for you? Like he's like what you think about when you go into a fight or at the end of the fight or whatever.
Yeah, literally, I literally think about him like 24/7. First thing when I wake up, I have his picture like on my bedside table. So I literally think of him first thing in the morning, last thing at night. And it's just extra motivation, really.
Mm.
Every day, daily life. Um, yeah, just literally just give me that extra push. So just big up Jara Shepherd.
Yeah, big up Jaro Shepherd. He was an absolute killer as well. He was so
Yeah,
good. Um, I also saw that you do have a couple of you've done a couple of brand deals here and there as well. And one of the ones I saw you do was a collaboration with Tom Hardy, of all
yeah,
people, who is sick at jiu-jitsu, by the
yeah,
way. He's
yeah.
actually sick.
A lot of people don't think he is, but he's legit.
Actually,
He is actually good.
mate, on Instagram now, I see more of him being in like Royston Gracie gyms than I am
Yeah,
actually
he's
seeing him doing.
passionate about it. Like he's proper passionate about it.
Yeah. So and obviously there's in the video thing, there's obviously you're like rolling around with him on the
Yeah,
mat. So like what the hell was that? What was that like? Like, could you
it was
believe you're literally
literally,
rolling?
it was literally one of the reasons why, like that experience is one of the reasons why I really love martial arts. Because look who Tom Hardy is. Like
Mm,
he's one of the biggest stars in the whole world, and I'm literally at this stage a nobody, and I'm get to the role of Tom Hardy, and like if everything felt like no so natural. Like obviously he's like a big time movie star. Like I
mm.
was quite nervous, obviously starstruck in the beginning, but the second we had that first role, is like he's literally like I've known him for years, and that's why I really like martial arts because like it doesn't discriminate. You can walk in a room and find like police officers and ex criminals and movie stars and celebrities and your everyday person all like bond together over one thing, and that's what me and Tom Hardy did after like the first role. We just talking about like, I didn't even talk about him about his movies or anything. All we talked about is jiu-jitsu and martial arts, and it was so casual, so like it was so real, and that's why I really like about martial arts. And he's such a down to earth guy as well. Like um after we rolled, he was like helping with the directing and music choices, and to see him in his element is just like it's astonishing. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I think this is the most jiu-jitsu certainly, like this is the most high profile I think it's ever been.
Yeah.
Like it just in terms of like, I mean, talking about, I'll go on to it later because you've actually fought on one of these, but the whole Polaris
Yeah.
promotion thing, and like Gordon Ryan, yes, I know he's on steroids a lot,
Yeah.
but do you know what I mean? Like he's like a really like quite well-known guy. So as well as MMA, like I think jiu-jitsu especially now, and
Yeah.
with Tom Hardy.
Yeah, jiu-jitsu's literally blown up. Like a lot of celebrities is doing it now. And it's just like one of those martial arts that anyone can do. Like it's fine, but it's not actually fine. So anyone literally in the whole world can start jiu-jitsu. It's like one of the best sports in the world. Even as you said, like Polaris, like they're getting UFC fighters and like named people fighting on the show, and like people are falling in love with it even more, and it's getting even more mainstream, but people are understanding it more.
Yeah, it's getting much bigger.
Yeah.
Uh, Talking about something that I always ask young athletes is like, how do they respond to positive critique? Because that must be a pretty strange thing. Now, I can read what Dan Hardy said from the PFL. He said, "I could not be more excited to bring Shanelle Dyer." This was obviously when you got signed onto the PFL Europe roster. I've watched her rising through the ranks and winning titles, and seen her in action in the gym many times. And when you hear that from Dan Hardy, that must mean he's literally fought for UFC world titles.
Yeah.
Like that must mean loads. And like, do you feel weird when you get that kind of praise
Funny,
from
funny,
people?
funny enough, Dan Hardy was in the gym today. He's been in the gym for like the
Really?
past 2 weeks. So I've seen him every day. I literally
Wow.
did have a conversation, like, and he watched me spar today and everything. But
Yeah.
it's a legend, man. Like, especially this year, I've had like so many like big name like fighters and people outside of fighting just like big me up and just like believing in me now. Like, how I've believed in myself for like my whole life, and like seeing people that's actually believing in me, it just pushes me even further. Like it's giving me like the confidence, like saying like I'm actually what I'm actually doing is right. Like I'm actually on the right path to greatness, having all of these people looking onto me, and I just want to work harder. Like a lot of people, it gives them pressure, especially young people might give them pressure. But for me, I don't really see it as pressure. I see it as motivation. Like it motivates me to work even harder. Oh, he's looking at me now. Let me work even harder to prove him right. Like that he's actually right to call me one of the biggest prospects, because he is right. And it motivates me to work even harder.
And moving into like your more like into your MMA career, obviously Muay Thai was your first martial art and the whole striking and everything. But then when you did go, I know we were just talking about jiu-jitsu, but doing jiu-jitsu for the first time or grappling for the first time after you're just used to like kicking and punching the shit out of people, and all of a sudden you're like, what the fuck? I'm on the floor, and it's very different. Like, was that weird, like doing that for the first time after doing primarily striking?
100%. Because for me, in striking, like I got up to like such a high level in striking. Like I actually became like professional UK number one ranked fighter in the UK. So like I was really up there, and I was really confident in my skills. So coming from like one top end of one sport, coming from the top of one sport back down to the bottom of another sport, like it was a humbling experience. Like the first time coming into a gym, like I'm a big like fighter, and just getting smashed by like newbies and people like half my size and smashed by kids. It was really humbling. But what I really like about myself is that I don't take it personally, and there's like no ego. So if I get smashed in something like in jiu-jitsu, I'm not like to myself, oh, why did I get smashed? I should smash them or stuff like that. I take it as like, okay, I ask myself questions. I'm like, okay, why did I get armbarred? Why did I get choked? how can I get better in this? Ask my coach questions. How do I defend this? Like I want to get better. I'm obsessed with getting better, and that's why my jiu-jitsu skills that I excelled at a fast rate because I banged out jits, but the whole year I hardly did any striking. Did striking about once a week. But I just focused on jiu-jitsu. Like a lot of sessions I went to, I hated it. Like, I was just getting smashed. But I know if I just carried on doing jiu-jitsu for a year or two, I'm gonna have to be great at this, and that's what happened in the future.
Yeah. And obviously, like I mentioned Polaris earlier,
Yeah,
and you grappled there
yeah,
this year
yeah,
actually, and you won via omoplata,
yeah,
omoplata, whatever. Is the ground stuff obviously said you've done that for a year now, or
yeah,
that you just focused it on a year? Is that still obviously in camp you'll do more, but is that
yeah.
still the main thing you're focusing on? It's just doing that, or is it starting to lessen now the work rate on the grappling now that you feel more comfortable you're doing
I
a
think
bit
it's
more?
kind of like balancing out at this stage,
Yeah.
which is a great thing. Because obviously I've done striking for about 10 years at the time, so my striking
Mm,
was always at levels above, which I think is a great thing because I could actually give my striking a bit of a backseat. Okay, my striking is, especially in amateur MMA, my striking is actually quite good. It's probably like
mm,
to the professional end, so I can kind of make it take a backseat and focus more on my jiu-jitsu game and my grappling game. And that's what I did. And I've done a lot of grappling competitions last year as well, just to like get my confidence up. And I won a lot of them.
mm,
And that just boosted my confidence so much that actually made my striking and fighting so much better. So because I'm not nervous to get taken down, I'm not holding back with my strikes. Because before I used to hold back to my strikes, scared that if I overcommit, that I'll get taken down, then I'll
mm.
lose. But as my jiu-jitsu got better, my striking ultimately got better. So I've done jiu-jitsu for quite a while now. Um, and then I went on Polaris. Obviously, like Polaris is like
Mm.
probably the biggest jiu-jitsu stage in the whole world.
Oh
And
yeah, yeah, yeah,
I got invited on, and so much people were so surprised. Like, people were still counting me out because the girl I fought, she's a good name in the UK as well. So everyone just
yeah.
like I heard whispers. Everyone just like, how's she gonna do against her? Blah blah blah. She's a purple belt. I was a blue belt. I'm a striker allegedly. Not knowing I actually fought her in a competition last year and I smashed her, but nobody knew that, so everyone's counting me out. I put on such an exciting Polaris match that they still want me back on their shows. The promoter said I got like sub of the night. I got the only like omoplata finish in Polaris history, so that's like history making. So like my jiu-jitsu is like
Um,
growing like leaps and bounds. I done a camp. I went to Canada. I done a jiu-jitsu camp with Faraz Zahabi as well. So like my jiu-jitsu's improved so much that now like I got to a stage where I can focus more on my striking now. Like in camps, I can actually work game plans. Like my jiu-jitsu is good enough. Like I'm confident enough that if I go down, even if I'm against a brown or even black belt, that I can like survive and get back up and do what I need to do. So I can focus more on my striking and my game plan now. So I'm just evolving as a fighter.
you mentioned how you did now you're balancing stuff out now. Obviously, they're two styles. Now, if someone had done kickboxing for
Yeah,
Muay Thai for 10 years and then for a straight year that most of the time they just had to do jiu-jitsu and stuff, they could have
yeah,
easily gone, oh man, like really do I
yeah.
have to do this and stuff? But you've still pushed through it, even though it may not be. I mean, maybe you do find it as exciting as striking in a different
No.
way. Okay, yeah.
No, literally, like my last fight, I took the girl down. And I was just like, "What am I doing?" I was literally between my head. I'm like, "This is so boring. Like, what am I doing?
Yeah,
Like, I'm meant to be fighting, and we're hugging like this. Oh, I
yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
I always say like, when I won my plus fight, my caption was, "I strike when I strike, I grapple when I grapple, I win regardless." Like, I like jiu-jitsu when I'm doing jiu-jitsu, but when we're fighting, please just fight.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think that's the case for a lot of MMA fans when they're watching.
Yeah,
They're like, oh, they're just watching like a fest on the ground, like a
yeah,
grappling
that
fest
was
on the ground. So but do you think that what is it about you that sets you apart from other fighters, do you think?
I think it's just like my determination to get better. Like I'm of getting better. Not even like fighting. Like I said before, like education. Like if I'm bad at something, like I need to get better in this. How I ask myself questions like how do I get better in this? Like, why am I not good at this? Like, how can I? What's the next steps of getting better? I'm just obsessed with getting better. Like I started like properly wrestling about a year and a half ago, and I
Mm,
just like I hate the fact that if I'm not good at something, like not in the ego way, I always say not in the ego way, but I just need to know why. I just need to get better stuff
mm.
at something, and I think that's what sets me apart with fighters. Like I'm not afraid to be bad at something. I'm not afraid to start at the bottom. Like if I'm bad at something, I know I'm bad at something. There's no shame in that. I know that I'm gonna get better at this if I just keep working in it. Like there's no doubt. So yeah.
Yeah. I mentioned Dan Hardy before, and
Yeah.
obviously, so you're with the PFL, and you made your PFL debut, and you won in Paris. Um, Now that you're with the PFL, most MMA fighters, I think, yeah, most MMA fighters, they say the UFC, that's the golden goose, that's the
Yeah.
one that they're all going for. So what was it about you? What was it about the PFL that attracted you the most? Because you never know, they could have gone, you know what, I'm not gonna go, I'm not gonna, even though the PFL offers there, I'm just gonna
Yeah.
keep getting better in the smaller promotions and just hope that I get onto like a cage, which you're in the Cage Warriors Academy and stuff,
Yeah.
but wait until I get into the UFC. So what was it about the PFL that attracted you?
I think especially for like the UFC aspect of that, it's just like I think times have changed. Like
Yeah.
like like 10, even 5 years ago, like everyone's dream goal was to be in the UFC. And like I think now, especially 2022, 2023, like times have changed so much that like the MMA game has changed so much. There's so much more aspect to it. And if you're a smart fighter, that UFC is not the only route to be the greatest fighter in the whole world.
Mm,
I've realized that this year as well. Um I'm only young, like I'm only 22. I started my professional career this year,
mm,
when I was 21. Um, and in the beginning of the year, me and my coaches, and my manager all sat down and we asked like directions for this year, like where do we go for this year? And our plan ultimately was just to gain experience, like no rushing anything, no signing no major deals, multi-fight deals, just take the fights as they come and try to get as much fights in the year. So obviously I had the one-off fight in Hexagon, had the
mm.
viral spinning back elbow
Yeah.
finish. I had a lot of hype off of my name after that. And then I fought in FCC on April, had another first round finish. And like my name was like so hot in like the MMA community, like everyone wanted to sign me. Cage Warriors wanted to sign me, but their deal wasn't great, so we turned that down. So many areas that so many people wanted to sign me off of that, but we stuck to our guns and was like, no, we don't want to sign with anything. We just want to we don't want to be tied down. We have so much time. We just want to keep fighting in different promotions. But when PFL came, like we couldn't really turn that deal down. Like
Mm.
obviously, PFL is like the big one of the biggest names in the
Biggest.
whole world. So like that respect is like it was mind blowing.
Mm,
Anyways, for them, I'm only 205, only 22 years old, and they want to sign me. But what I really like about the PFL is just that, as I said before, I'm only 22, and I want to grow. Like right now, it's all about growth, and I can grow within the PFL. Like they
mm.
offered me 2 fights this year. I was the first fight in Paris. I was gonna fight in the undercard in
Dublin.
Dublin, and then I'm gonna be in the European scene, European tournament next year, and I can be in the global tournament the year after, and I can do super fights. Like just seeing the progression and growth, and that's what I really need. And I can actually do that in PFL, and they can actually look after me as a fighter with guidance and promote me as like one of their big fighters. Like I never even
Mm.
had one fight in PFL, and they'll send me so many different places to for publicity and get my name out there. And like they were ticking so many of the right boxes. So that's why ultimately I signed with the PFL.
Yeah, and I mean I completely agree. Like the whole like 50%
Yeah,
to fighters and 50 obviously in the UFC
yeah.
it's a lot less in the
Yeah, like
UFC. And they
PFL, they're really for the fighters. Like
yeah,
it's I call it like they're a fighters league. Like they're for us. They work with us for us. Because ultimately, if there's no fighters, there's no organization. So
mm,
PFL, they know that. So they're working with us. That's what I really love. Like they take
and
care of you so much.
yeah, and I mean I watched Ariel Helwani
Yeah,
like his thing the other day and he was one of the questions he was asked on like his Q&A thing was, oh, do you think the UFC do you think UFC will ever be below the number one MMA thing? And he was like, no, he says, I think that'd have to be
yeah,
something disastrous for that to happen. But
yeah,
to be honest, But to be honest with you, I'm not saying like the UFC could like fall away completely
Yeah,
like overnight, but I just think the more the PFL, I don't know if you think of this, I mean you were literally in it, but the more better financially the PFL gives deals to fighters,
yeah,
like I really think there could be maybe not overtake the UFC, but
yeah,
I definitely think it could, do you know what I mean? Like even
yeah.
out,
Because
especially
like,
with the format as well of it.
yeah, because like UFC always has that name value. That always has that name value of MMA. So like if like UFC is basically a name. Like you can go around the street, ask, and if you tell anyone you do MMA, they don't really know what it is. You say you do UFC, people know what it is. So it always has
Mm,
that name value UFC. But what PFL is like is growing so much in the past year that they
mm.
signed like the best fighters. Obviously they signed Ngannou, they're signing
Doombe,
Carissa Shields, Doombay. So they're signing
mm.
boxers. Like they signed Jake Paul,
Serrano.
Toronto. So they're signing, they're putting in the work in. Like they're going a lot more mainstream PFL, and I think that's their route
Mm,
to taking over and being to the top, like involving the mainstream media, the mainstream like their PR and their social media presence is like is amazing. So they're putting the work in. So over like the next few years, they're 100% going to be at the top, or if not challenging.
mm. And before you went pro this year, I think you finished as an amateur of 8-3. I think I've got
Yeah.
on my notes. How did you get over those three losses as a young athlete? Like, did you find it hard? I mean, obviously you've smashed it since, but
Yeah,
like, and you won, you left the amateurs on the winning streak. So
yeah.
like, did it really bother you that much in the amateurs, like when you did lose, or did you just brush it
Yes,
off?
yeah, yes and no. At the time, I was devastated. Obviously, I was young sometimes when I had to like my first losses and stuff. Now looking back, I'm glad I had those losses. My amateur career, I think I done it right because I took all the hardest fight possible. Like I fought the best fighters in the whole world. I fought like the IMF world champion in my third fight. I won that fight. Like I said no. I didn't say no to literally anybody. I took all the hardest fights because I wanted all the hardest fights in amateur. I get so many different looks. So when I do turn pro, then I've had all my experience from amateur. So I literally took all the hardest fights. Like two out of those three losses, the two girls I've actually lost to, they fight in UFC now. So like
Yeah,
I didn't
yeah.
take any I didn't take any easy fights when in amateur. Um and I needed those losses. I need to know how to lose. I need to know how much I wanted to be in this game. So I'm glad I had those three losses and those mistakes that like after the first fight I lost. I think it was that choke or something like that. Literally the week after I signed up for a jiu-jitsu competition and I got like 3 goals in that competition and I started focusing a lot more on my jiu-jitsu game. So every time I had a loss, obviously I was devastated on the day, but I rebounded and I got even better as a fighter. And so my next fight, I would win it.
Hmm. And one of those losses, you said you lost to now UFC fighters.
Yeah,
One of those losses was to Shauna Bannon, who's
yeah,
quite a fair, not she's not a massive star, but you know, she's
yeah,
got a lot of popularity at the moment.
yeah,
Um, if the PFL and the UFC were to ever do some sort of collaboration, I think that'd be a sick fight.
yeah. A lot of
I'd
people
love
said
that.
that even to this day. Like everyone still says. Everyone remember. A lot of people. So much people remembers that fight. Like literally any like Irish, not even MMA fighter, like martial artist. Like every time they meet me, they're like, "I remember your fight with Sean the Bannon." Everyone remembers that fight because it was such. Even though I lost it, it's like it was such an iconic amateur fight, and I'm sure in a few years' time we're gonna run it back, and everyone's
Oh
gonna
yeah.
look back. Everyone's gonna look back to those fights and see how far we've come since then. Even now, like both of us, I'm fighting PFL, she's fighting in UFC. Unfortunately, she didn't win her UFC debut, but like
No.
we're on the path to greatness. Me and her, we're 100% gonna make one of the biggest fight ever in the
Oh,
future.
oh, that would be that. I think that yeah, that's definitely if
Yeah,
PFL and UFC to ever do a cross event,
yeah,
just do that. I think that'd be a sick
yeah,
one. Now when I mentioned the documentary of Sky that you did earlier, in that one, that was when you were with Steve
yeah,
at Team Underground. Now you're at Top Team.
yeah.
Uh, how are you finding it? How did you get involved? Also, like how did you get involved? Like what made you do the move from Underground to Top Team? And what have you learned the most whilst you've been there?
Yeah, so I ended my amateur career at Team Underground. I started my professional career with GB Top Team. I think it's
Hmm.
more for me, like for with just literally about the people and the guidance and the high level training partners. That's what I really ultimately made the move. Like Brad Pickett, Ashley Grimshaw, Barry Healy, like my coaches, they're like the best coaches in the world, and they can give me that guidance from coming from amateur into pro. And given the training partners, like everyone in the gym and GB Top Team, they give me hard rounds. Like there's no rest rounds in GB Top Team. Like if you want to have a good wrestling round, you know who to go with. Good striking rounds, you know who to go with. Like the level is so high. You walk in the gym and you're like, I remember the first time walking in the gym, I'm like, he's Cage Warriors world champion. He fights in UFC. He fights in PFL. He fights in Bellator. Like the room was literally amazing. I look up to these people daily, and literally I can walk into the room and ask anyone for advice, and they'll give me that advice and guidance. Like in Team Underground, they're a new gym, so they kind of started their martial arts career when I kind of joined. So it was kind of growing together. Whereas I needed that guidance to know where I'm going for sure, and I don't want to be like the first person doing stuff. I want to be sure with like my movements. And Brad Pickett, he's been here, there, and everywhere. So if any warrior I have, I'll go to him, and he's like, okay, I know that because I've done it before. I know how to get on this show because I know this promoter and stuff like that. So GB Top Team, they've given me a great look, and I'm happy to call it home.
Yeah, definitely. No, that's probably one of the leading like MMA gyms definitely in the
Yeah.
UK. Couple more questions. Obviously it's not it's again it's not one of it's about you, but it's about like obviously in the UFC they did a big shake up the other week. And I've asked I did another podcast. Have you heard of Chloe Goen?
Yeah,
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 yeah. So I did one with her the other day, and I asked this the same thing because it's going to be sick. UFC 295. Obviously, John Jones is out, and
yeah.
our very own Tommy Aspinall's
Almost.
fighting Pavlovich.
Yeah.
Who do you think is going to Tommy?
I have to say, Tommy, man. Like, I'll be so happy if he wins.
Yeah.
I actually met him once. Like, um, I only started watching like MMA like 2 years ago, and he came to like my Muay Thai gym like 3 years ago. I was doing a PT, and he was like sparring one of my coach, Lyndon Knowles. But I never knew who he was, and like, oh, he's a UFC fighter. I was like, oh, okay. But like, seeing he's fighting for the belt now. It's just like the UK MMA scene is growing so much.
Mate, it's mental.
It's so like for the past few years, it's growing so much. Like obviously, Leon Edwards is a champ. Tommy Aspinall is going to be a champ as well. Like even in the PFL, like my teammate Simeon Powell, he's going to be European champ. Dakota, she's going to be European champ as well in Dublin. So they're taking over the European scene. Then they'll go over to America, take over the American scene next year. So like UK MMA scene is just it's blowing up.
Great, because I follow because I lived in Birmingham for 3 years for uni, and obviously
Yeah,
Renegade there. Just to know, I didn't go there, but I
yeah,
follow I know a guy who's in the gym there, and the amount of people because I follow their Instagram, and the amount
yeah.
of people that are in they're like it's literally full.
Yeah,
The gym,
like
loads.
I go what's it next gen now. I went a few times this year. I'm actually going there next year to like spa next week to like spa Molly and train with Molly and stuff. Just like
Mm.
the pro classes is calm. Even the classes, I swear I counted like 80 people in that tiny room. It
It's
was packed.
but
And like night
it's not just the MMA though. It's like the jiu-jitsu classes they do.
yeah.
Just
And
full.
there's yeah, and there's like 90% of people was just there because of like Molly and Paddy. They're like someone was holding pads for me and they're like, I'm just here for Molly and Paddy. I was like, wow.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Like the
yeah.
influence, like they're getting so much people more into that jiu-jitsu and MMA. Like the
Mm.
sport is really growing.
Yeah, it's really amazing. Don't get me wrong, boxing will always have I'm sure a special
Yeah,
place in the UK, but I really think MMA is gonna be right
yeah,
up there no
yeah,
time soon. Last question. I always ask this to the athletes that I interview or the people that I interview. Um, Obviously you're 22
yeah,
now, and this podcast is called In 10 Years Time. So 10 years time in 2032, you'll be 32. Um,
yeah.
where no 2033, sorry, not 32. Where would you like to see yourself in 10 years time in both MMA and like just in life in general?
In MMA, I'll be in my prime then. I want to
Mm.
be a household name by then. I want to be a multiple time um champion in PFL, double time champion. I just want it all by then. Literally, I'll be in my prime. I've been in this fighting business for about 10 years now. So in 10 years' time, I'm going to be literally one of the greatest of all times. I'll say that now. In life, I want to be settled. Martial arts, you only start fighting until like mid to late 30s. I want to be settled. I want to own a few businesses, and I want to be set in life by 32.
Shanelle, thanks so much for being an amazing guest. Really enjoyed the chat. Thanks for your time because I know you're busy at the
Yeah.
moment. And yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.